Lisa Simpson has had a lot of romantic storylines over the years, with level 5 vegans, the school bully, the school dweeb, the town weirdo, an automated hotline, and many, many others. But unlike those where we saw how and why they failed, there's one anomaly: Colin from the Simpsons movie. He seemed to tick every one of Lisa's boxes, and it really looked like their relationship would outlive the movie because by the end of the film, they walked off into the sunset almost as though they were going to live happily ever after, or at least a few more episodes together. But they didn't, and it looks like Colin got called back up to his home planet.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
So, what happened? Why did he disappear? Did the creators ever plan on bringing him back? And would bringing him back be a good move? Let's get into it.
Lisa's got a boyfriend that she'll never see again.
So, to give you the Cliff Notes version of their love story, the movie opens with Green Day performing at Lake Springfield, but the gig ends in chaos when the crowd hurl trash at the band for speaking about the environment. Ironically, their barge sinks because of the lake's pollution, and Trey, Mike, and Billy Joe are all sent down into their watery graves. Now, I remember how sad I felt at the time, sitting there 11 years old, eyeliner tears dripping down my cheeks as I watched my first ever childhood crush being killed before my very eyes. Anyway, this incident encourages Lisa to knock on everybody's doors to try and help them clean up Lake Springfield. Until...
Come on over, Lisa. You can canvass me as long as you want.
Which is shortly followed by Nelson punching Milhouse for selling out his beliefs.
Say global warming is a myth.
It's a myth. Further study is needed.
It's worth pointing out these two characters here because at that time they had the most consistent potential for a relationship with Lisa. And this scene perfectly reminds us why they have failed. Milhouse for being too much of a pushover and, let's face it, a creep, and Nelson for being that unchangeable bad boy bully, as we saw in Lisa's date with Density.
I was foolish to think I'd actually changed you. Maybe I was seeing things in you that weren't really there.
Oh yeah, and this is discounting all his development later on in the show, but I digress. More on that later. By doing this and showing Milhouse and Nelson with all their flaws and then introducing someone like Colin, it only made his and Lisa's meet-cute make more sense. By comparison, he's as dreamy as an 8-year-old cartoon boy could possibly be to Lisa. And they click instantly, finishing off each other's sentences.
Are you aware that a leaky faucet can waste over
2,000 gallons a year?
Also, he has big dreamy eyes, plays lots of musical instruments, and has an Irish accent. And no, his dad definitely isn't Bono.
I just thought because you're Irish and you care about...
He's not Bono.
He actually shares Lisa's beliefs and passions rather than pretending to like Milhouse. This was the dream boy we hadn't really seen for Lisa in the series so far. Everything that Lisa likes in a guy rolled up into a neat little package. Together, they work as a team to convince Springfield to clean up the lake, but even still, Springfield is trapped underneath the giant dome, and even during the chaos of Trappuccino, he's still supportive of Lisa, writing and performing a goodbye song for her for when the Simpsons have to leave.
Da, 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 da.
By the end of the movie, despite Milhouse's interference, Colin and Lisa are reunited.
You want to go?
Clean up the lake!
Well, I was going to say get some ice cream, but okay.
And the film ends with them walking off to get ice cream into the sunset while holding hands. Now, I have to point out that a big strength of the Simpsons movie was how well each family member had their own conflicts and arcs, with their own reasons to want to return to Springfield in order to build up to the climax. With Lisa's in particular having that strong romantic element that really helped bond the overall story. What I'm trying to say here is that it was one of the stronger storylines for me. If anything, I felt it was so strong and such a good build-up into a romance that I was half expecting Colin to crop up in the next regular episode. And he did, but not in the way I expected. The next time we would see Colin was in the opening for the show's next episode after the Simpsons movie, season 19's He Loves to Fly and He Does. This opening picks up directly from where the Simpsons movie left off, with Bart writing on the chalkboard, "I will not wait 20 years to make another movie," before skating out into a very dishevelled looking Springfield, getting cleaned up after the movie's chaos. By the way, they have 4 more years to make that sequel happen, and if they don't, that promise is severely broken. Just saying. Along the way, Bart comes across the multi-eyed creature from the movie and then skates onto a huge piece of glass from the Shattered Dome, weaving through the movie's characters: President Schwarzenegger, Ross Cargill, the Medicine Woman, and yes, Colin. I feel this opening was the Simpsons' way to acknowledge the events of the movie without allowing it to then melt into the regular episodes, metaphorically and literally returning the town and the show to its status quo. There would be a rare few Easter eggs referencing the movie in later episodes, but Colin only reappeared as a background character, like in season 20's Lisa the Drama Queen, but that's about it. And instead of feeling sad about it, I can see why there's a good few reasons as to why he disappeared, plus a few reasons why he shouldn't return. So let's lay it all out. There's no question that the Simpsons movie was a landmark in cartoon history, because even though other cartoons had gotten their own movies before, it's safe to say that the Simpsons movie was the most anticipated.
The Simpsons Movie, in theaters worldwide, July 27th.
So therefore, there was a lot of pressure for the crew to make it successful critically and financially. So the first step in this was a decision to write the Simpsons movie as its own contained media, with little to no context needed, thus allowing people who had never watched the show to understand the plot and its characters as much as the Simpsons' diehard fans. In order to carry this out, the team introduced a set of brand new characters for the movie, including Colin, which is perhaps why Arnold Schwarzenegger was chosen as president over his Simpsons parody Rainier Wolfcastle, which is a choice I found really weird, up until now anyway. In the movie's audio commentary, the creators also talked about why Colin was chosen over their previous choice, Milhouse.
And then we tried it with Milhouse, and we found the audience was not as familiar with Milhouse's long-standing crush on her as we thought they were, and it just didn't work.
So, by introducing a new love, it made the movie feel more contained, and it didn't alienate those who had never watched The Simpsons before. The movie was for everyone. This is also why we got a brand new character as the movie's villain, because originally we were going to get Season 8 You Only Move Twice star Hank Scorpio, but he was swapped out with Ross Cargill to make it easier on the broader audience. As such, the movie was very much treated like an episode's self-contained story, not necessarily tied to the continuity of the TV show. And on that note, I suppose we could compare Colin's character to Hank Scorpio because they were brand new characters we had never seen before who made a big impact, but then weren't ever seen again. In Colin's case, he was part of the movie storyline, Lisa's storyline, and he was perfect here because he was the reason why Lisa specifically wanted to go back to Springfield. He could support her efforts in saving the environment, and without him, that need and Lisa's presence would feel a bit redundant in the story. This is why I believe he doesn't really need to return to future episodes, because he's fine here to serve his purpose as Lisa's crush, and by leaving him behind, it allows The Simpsons to continue exploring unique plot points, and therefore doesn't alter the show's flexible episodic nature. And in terms of Lisa, if she's single, it opens up many other episodes where Lisa gets a boyfriend, and yeah, from that, we've seen a lot of episodes where she gets a boyfriend. Also, there's the fact of the matter, which is, where could you realistically take her and Colin after the movie? At least with her relationship with Nelson, it's a bit more dynamic. This is because we have seen how his personality has been developed over the show. There's still that underlying good girl, bad boy romance, but we've seen enough of Nelson's sensitive and more complex side to really understand why she might like him long term. This has only been helped by flash future episodes that have only developed upon this relationship and therefore make it seem like there's some longevity. And while we're here, and speaking of character development, The Simpsons already have an extensive cast of recurring characters that they can focus on, allowing them to evolve within the show's familiar dynamics. So by introducing a new regular character like Colin, it would only disrupt this balance. Take her pal, Homer's half-brother for example, because he appeared in a couple of key episodes but was then sidelined to maintain the show's core focus and the main cast. Similarly, Poochie was introduced as a new character but was quickly written out, which was literally and humorously the writer's way of highlighting the challenge of integrating new characters into a well-established series. Overall, The Simpsons thrives on returning to the status quo where each episode stands alone.
My advice is to ride it out, make an occasional smart aleck quip, and by next week we'll be back to where we started from, ready for another wacky adventure.
Ay caramba!
This means significant changes or new characters from one episode often aren't referenced again, and if they are, very rarely. It's a storytelling choice that keeps the show accessible and enjoyable without needing to follow an ongoing narrative. There's a few exceptions to this rule, of course, like with Shauna and Kimiko, but they're not directly tied to the Simpsons family, so their introductions didn't really hugely impact the show, whereas Colin is so tightly connected to Lisa, and as such could disrupt the balance of the show. Oh yeah, and speaking of Shauna, I've gotten a couple of requests to do a deep dive into her character, so let me know down in the comments if that's something that would interest you. My only gripe when comparing Colin to these aforementioned characters like Hank Scorpio is that his disappearance was never fully explained. Like with Hank Scorpio, it was established that Homer had to leave Cypress Creek in order to make his family happy. But I guess this is where the difference is between a movie and an episode, because a romantic ending is far more appealing and cinematic than a breakup. But maybe the ambiguity of their breakup stays true to Lisa's tragic love life. She's a character who has historically suffered in a relatable way, from making friends to depression to physical insecurities, so maybe it makes sense that we just assume that they broke up. In an interview with Movies Online, James L. Brooks chose a character like Colin because, and I quote, "an Irish romance would be suitably tragic for Lisa." Apparently, even Lisa's voice actor Yardley Smith asked, "Is there any way she could possibly keep this one?" explaining that in the show they've done a fair few romances that always end unhappily.
Was this your favorite boyfriend of all the boys we gave you in the movie? All the characters we threw out?
I thought he had the most sass appeal.
She went on to say, "Every time you give Lisa something, you take it away, whether it's a boy or a pony." But yeah, by the end, Colin's disappearance isn't a mystery. I believe it was a deliberate choice to maintain The Simpsons' flexibility in its storytelling, keeping Lisa's storylines wide open while staying true to how the show has always told its stories. What I will say though is that Colin's presence in the movie remains a memorable highlight, and his absence in the series is truly a testament to the show's unique storytelling style, and how successful The Simpsons movie truly was and is. But what do you think? How do you think they could bring Colin back? And would you want to see him back? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.